Hi guys, it's Carly here from CanCard. I hope you're all well and that you're all keeping healthy and happy in these beautiful autumn vibes that we've got going on. I just wanted to touch base with you today and just sort of open up a little bit of discussion around a Times article that went out on Sunday, which I'm sure some of you have seen. So let's dive in. So the headline is very inflammatory. Suella Braverman wants to make cannabis a Class A drug, which I'm sure hit you all in the gut as it did me. But let's have a little bit of a look at it. So the article starts: Suella Braverman is considering upgrading cannabis to a Class A amid concerns that it's become a gateway drug for more harmful substances. I had to just check my what year we were in when I read this. I was like, really? I just thought we were past the idea that cannabis was a gateway drug. In fact, there's evidence to suggest the opposite. Personally, for me, I think the gateway drug to all drug and alcohol abuse rather than consumption is trauma. I do not believe that cannabis, and I think that most of the actual scientists that are involved in this field do not also believe that cannabis is a gateway drug. And when we look at the evidence, well, all we can find really is the opposite. So we look at Japan. Now, Japan's a really interesting one because in Japan, it's incredibly difficult to access cannabis. So hard. And despite the fact that it's so difficult to get cannabis, there are millions of people in Japan who are consuming drugs, other drugs. In 2012, they did some data capture and they found out that 83.2% of drug consumers did not start with cannabis. Now, that's a really interesting statistic because it's coming out of a country where access to cannabis is pretty much nil. And so we've got the environment with which to gather that data, because put that anywhere else and you really have not got that opportunity to find out why people begin their journey with drugs. Let's look at what else was said. The Home Secretary has told allies. Now, let's just have a little look at that. None of these points in this article are direct quotes from Suella at all. Not one single quote in here has come from her. They've all come from sources close to Suella. Now, quite often, this is a little bit of a PR hack. Quite often when the government want to get some information out there, but they don't want to actually be implicated, they don't want to implicate that person, that minister, that name, they will release a press release or they will leak it to the press to say a source has said, a source close to has said. Now, to the journalists, they have to prove that that source is close to them. So we know that they are implicit in distributing this information. So the Home Secretary has told allies, and allies have then told the Times that she's on the same side as a group of conservative PCCs who in recent days have called for the drug to be put on par with cocaine. So if you've been keeping your eye on the press in the coming weeks, we know that a handful of PCCs at a political conference made it known that they were anti-cannabis. Is this a surprise? Absolutely not. PCCs are political entities, so they are either Labour PCCs, depending on the area, or they're Conservative PCCs, and so they are somewhat bound to a political line of thinking. Do we think that that's reflective of the chief of police, the chief constables that are in the police station, and the police in there doing the job every day, going out on the beat? Absolutely not. Do we, as CanCard, for example, see areas where PCCs are anti-cannabis? Do we see that reflecting in the way that stops are handled for our patients? Absolutely not. So it's a little bit of jumping on the bandwagon, but it's a little bit of this article is using the PCC's conservative viewpoints to kind of push in and make a statement here. That's essentially what's happening. A source familiar with Braverman's thinking said she's strongly opposed to calls to decriminalise cannabis, which she believes sends a cultural and political signal that that using the drug is acceptable behaviour. She is also alarmed at evidence linking the drug to a raft of mental health issues, including psychosis, cancer, and birth defects. Evidence. I'm going to repeat that because, yes, it's absolutely insane. She's alarmed at evidence. What evidence? Where is this evidence that links cannabis to psychosis, cancer, and birth defects? Tumbleweed. You know, we live in an age of information. We're ripe for it. We can get on the internet and we can access anything these days. We can go on, type a search in, and we can be as familiar with research papers and evidence bases as any other scientist. We've got access to every kind of library and every kind of published, at least, study that's been done. And can we find anything that links, any kind of evidence that links those things to cannabis? Absolutely not. I'd love to see this evidence that she thinks she's seen. And then it goes on to say, upgrading cannabis from Class B would see the maximum penalties for possession increase from 5 to 7 years, with the maximum penalty for supply also rising from 14 years to a life sentence. This is in the same week that Biden has gone on national TV, spoken to the whole of the United States and said, I am actively going to remove all historic criminal records pertaining to the possession of cannabis. This is in the same week. Braverman believes that deterrence is crucial to arresting the growing popularity of the drug amongst teenagers. I actually think, if we look at the data, the use amongst teenagers has actually gone down. We've got to scare people, the source said. And I think that's actually given the game away at the end, towards the end of that article, because we've got to scare people is a tactic. Do we have to scare people, or do we just need to give people enough information that makes all of their decisions come from an informed place?